Niners could be very interested in Sam Darnold. And then, of course, Colin Cowherd really tweeted it, really exacerbated it by going, oh my God, this would be a great fit for Sam. I'm not supposed to be a fan, but I'm rooting for this, blah, blah, blah. You know how Cowherd is. And so Jamal here asks us what our thoughts would be on him in a 49ers uniform. If you don't mind, I'm going to take this first because I'm representing the team today with a 49ers hoodie, and I detest this idea. First of all, let me preface this by saying that you can question my objectivity when it comes to this. I do want to preface it by saying this because I did not like Sam Darnold before the draft. I thought he was overrated as hell before the draft. I thought he was talked about as the best prospect since Andrew Luck. And I thought I saw like physically he's really gifted, but there's so much polish lacking in his game. And there was so much polish lacking in his game even when he was at USC. So I did not think that highly of him. And I thought he was really overrated because he was your classic 6'4", big white guy who speaks really well. And you see so many of these type guys get overdrafted for being that guy. Smart, Blaine Gabbert did, Jake Locker did. There's a lot big. Blake Bortles was of that. And I think Darnold is more talented than all three of those players. So I'm not comparing him to them, but I'm just saying that kind of format of player gets overdrafted constantly in the NFL. I hate the idea of him coming to the 49ers. And it has actually nothing to do with this play because I do see the glimpses of talent that other people see, though I don't see any consistency and I'm not high on his upside at all. But let's put that personal opinion of him aside. Sam Darnold's going into his fourth year. You got to make a decision on his fifth-year option this season. Mm-hmm. And that fifth-year option pays him $25 million. Based on the last 3 years, Adam Gase, offensive line, wide receivers or not, Sam Darnold has not played good football. We can say Adam Gase, right? And I don't think Adam Gase is a good coach. But I also live in Chicago, and Jay Cutler had his best season by far when Adam Gase was the offensive coordinator. And, Brock Osweiler in Miami won games with Adam Gase as the head coach. So, and, Ryan Tannehill, and people bring that up on his improvement. Ryan Tannehill was a much better player than Sam Darnold has shown the last 3 years. In his 3 years in Miami with Adam Gase, they went to the playoffs and they actually had a winning record together. So Adam Gase is a problem. I'm not going to say he isn't a bad coach, but it's not the only problem. And you can say the offensive line and the receivers, but we saw Joe Burrow walk in with Zach Taylor as his head coach this season and show you the difference between a truly special quarterback that can elevate his surroundings. I mean, they had a terrible offensive line that got even worse because they played with undrafted right guards they would sign the week before the game, and he would play in the game. And you had Kyler Murray 2 years ago, and you can say Kyler's weapons before Hop. Like, Larry Fitzgerald is a Hall of Famer for sure. First ballot Hall of Fame. Larry Fitzgerald is not that good anymore. He's not very fast. He's one of the slower players in the entire league. And Kyler made it happen with Cliff Kingsbury. So there are other quarterbacks that do overcome these circumstances and show you something. And Sam Darnold shows you one great play a game that makes you say, this is going to be, I don't believe that. And so going back to the fifth-year option, right? Again, I just went on a giant tangent. But the fifth-year option, you got to pay him $25 million. He's not shown at any point in his career that he's worth being paid $25 million. Adam Schefter says he's going to go for either a second-round pick or a late one, okay? If you have to trade that for a guy that you're going to basically get on a one-year rental to check him out for a year, it's not worth it because you have to make a contractual decision on him. There's no financial flexibility here because he's not under contract. So he's cheap for a single year. And if you think that Sam Darnold can walk in and be the starter of a team with Super Bowl aspirations from day one, I would say you're crazy because the Sam Darnold I've seen the last 2 years looks like a guy that has zero confidence in himself or his play. And now, again, we can blame it on the offensive line, the receivers, and Adam Gase, but that's not going to make his confidence magically come back just by coming here. He looks like a guy that needs to sit. Even Ryan Tannehill, the comparison people want to bring up, Ryan Tannehill sat the first 4 games behind Mario, who he was a much better player than even before Tennessee signed him, but he had to sit the first 4 games, and I'm sure that helped him in terms of just learning the playbook and finding his confidence and finding himself again. So I'm totally against the idea of Sam Darnold to the 49ers for all those reasons.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Sam Darnold thing. So a lot of people want to just basically dismiss his poor play for coaching and weapons. And I can see the argument on how you could think he's not like completely as bad as he's shown himself to be, because it's a fair point. But when you're talking about trading like a first or a second rounder for someone who, like you said, has shown glimpses of being amazing, and then he's shown glimpses of saying, I'm seeing ghosts out there, and just played terrible games time in and time out. Yeah, that's maybe not the most promising thing. And also, this year when Joe Flacco stepped in for his position, he played just as good, if not better. And if we remember,
he was better. He was better.
If you remember Joe Flacco on the Ravens that final year, he was pretty bad. And then Lamar kind of saved the day when he came in, and then they snuck into the playoffs. They had a crazy win streak, right? So you think about that, and then you think about the other guys like Herbert, Burrow, Murray. They come in and they don't really have the greatest weapons either, but they at least, win a few games. They play well, and you can say last year, so the Jets went 7-9. This year they went 2-14. So you can say like, oh, it was because of COVID and those reasons, but I don't know. I'm with you. I think Darnold should probably he'll go somewhere for cheaper than hopefully a second, sit for a year, and then they'll probably decline his fifth year. I would be very surprised if he's getting paid $25 million and on his fifth-year contract.
I think his best spot is to go somewhere where he can sit and be a backup quarterback that with a coach that doesn't have the pressure to win and has an entrenched starter who's a very ceiling starter, like maybe Oakland. But I think Derek Carr is a top 15 quarterback. So I don't know if that's fair to him, but that would be something, especially because Gruden always flirts with other quarterbacks, even though I'm going to say this right now, I'm going to attention. Carr is a better quarterback than Gruden is a coach. That's just a fact. So it really should be the other way around, but it's unfortunate that Derek Carr has to deal with that. And so, yeah, I have no interest in seeing Sam Darnold as a 49er. I think it would be a horrible move, and I think it would be a ginormous disappointment given that all the quarterbacks that are presenting themselves as available this offseason with Watson and Matthew Stafford and all of that. Because I don't even think Sam Darnold's a better player than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. And I think that if you put Sam Darnold currently as he is, he would be similar to Jimmy Garoppolo in this system right now. He just has a way bigger upside because Garoppolo has zero upside. But that's how I really feel about it. I would be totally upset if Sam Darnold was the next quarterback for the 49ers. I think it's a horrible idea, and I still think he's massively overrated. And he was massively overrated when he came out. And like you said, he's not as bad as what he's shown. He's definitely a lot better than that. He's had a crappy situation to deal with. But that doesn't mean he's going to be a megastar if you change his situation.
We've seen people overcome similar scenarios. Right. And I think another thing with him is he doesn't get hated on like dudes who have failed that have been in similar positions. I think that like there's a lot of truthers for Sam Darnold that are sticking him up and blaming it solely on the situation.
Right. It's because it's what I go back to. If you have this media pre-draft hype and pre-draft love, the media will be positive about you and blame your situation on your surroundings. Like, look at the other quarterback in New York, Daniel Jones. Everybody hated that draft pick. And Daniel Jones has been pretty similar to Sam Darnold in terms of his production. I think his rookie season, he showed more consistency and potential than Sam Darnold has shown. I actually like Daniel Jones as being I think he's the next Kirk Cousins. That's who he reminds me of. Kind of crazy, but that's who Daniel Jones reminds me of. But people are already saying that the Giants should move off Daniel Jones. He's a massive bust. People did this to Josh Allen 2 years ago because they hated Josh Allen before the draft. So they said that the Bills should be thinking about moving off him. And now Josh Allen's a top 5 quarterback in football. So I think that a lot of Sam Darnold's hype comes from this pre-draft just kind of crowning him as the next Andrew Luck when he wasn't near that.
And this happens with other players too. One guy that comes to mind to me is John Ross. So he was a top 10, top 12 pick to the Bengals, and he's a little slot receiver, and he's been either constantly injured, and one year he put up 8 touchdowns, all like just quick red zone gadget plays. And then everyone's like, oh, we should trade for John Ross if he's available, when he hasn't really shown much. It's just based on like the pre-draft notion that he was a 4-3 receiver that has potential.
Right. It's unfortunate, and it's just the reality of the NFL. And it's funny because nobody and Grant brings it up, and I'm sure we're gonna have a conversation about this tomorrow because I spoke to him this morning and he asked me this question. Like, I think Sam Darnold's more talented than Josh Rosen. I was wrong. I thought Josh Rosen was better than Sam Darnold before the draft. I was wrong about that. There's no doubt about it. But he does ask the question and he says, why are people so bullish on giving Sam Darnold chance after chance, but nobody wants to give Josh Rosen one more chance? And I think it's a really good question. I don't have an answer for it right now, but I think that kind of sums up the exact conversation that we just had.
For sure.